All right. What's good, everybody? Once again, it's Adam, frontman of your future favorite band, Modern BC, your new favorite MC, and one half of New Age X. Shout out to the crew. Today, we got a little fun one, man. This is going to be an interesting stream. We're going to look at some analytical pieces that go over, or thought pieces, I guess I should call them, going over three movies that I think have really predicted different elements of our current condition in pretty profound ways. And not only are they, profound like that, they're also amazingly made movies and well done, well written, well acted. They're hallmarks of their time, in my opinion. So we're going over Network, They Live, and Idiocracy. So we're going to get one from the 70s, one from the 80s, and one from the 2000s. Idiocracy, I want to say, came out 19 years ago. So, close to 2 decades being the earliest. I think that's a pretty astute kind of a writer to be able to predict that far out. And then the further you go back, I mean, I've seen all these movies. It's going to be interesting to see the opinion of the video makers on here, but I'm a lover of all three for various reasons. They really have. I mean, I saw it more so future-wise with Idiocracy because I saw it when it came out, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where we're headed. But the other ones I saw, and I was able to see that they hit the nail right on the head. So let's go ahead and hop in here and see what they're talking about first with Network. We're gonna look at Crit Pick Productions video, How Society Stays the Same. And this movie is from 1976, so let's swap over here and get this thing rolling.
Network is a 1976 film directed by the glorious Sidney Lumet, who famously directed 12 Angry Men, but of course he's directed a lot of films, a lot of classics like Dog Day Afternoon, and even less recognized but great films like Death Trap. But in 1976, he brought Network to the world, which may not be his best work or most decorated or popular work, but it is for sure his most timeless work. So a basic breakdown of the film is that we follow a TV network in 1975 with abysmal ratings. They elect to fire their news anchor, Howard Beale, who, upon learning this, decides he's going to tell the world live on air that he's planning to kill himself on the news. Of course, he's fired immediately and taken off air, but as it turns out, the attention this garners spikes their ratings massively to the point.
And that's one thing this movie really, he'll probably touch on this, but that movie, man, it really got into the hysteria side of the news and the ratings battle and how it became more trying to get people on the entertainment shock value side. You know what I mean? Just keep the eyes on the screen as opposed to informing the masses. Super fascinating movie, yo. The producer chick, the character that plays the producer, or the character of the producer is out of control, yo.
Point of them giving Beale his own show where they basically frame him as a modern day messiah. He goes on every night and screams at the audience.
Mad as hell.
Angry man.
I'm not gonna take it anymore.
For the ending, but eventually this causes the network trouble, and eventually he's subject to an assassination live on air, orchestrated by the network. Now, this film has so many messages and themes about modern day messiahs, and at the time, the TV generation. Faye Dunaway plays Diana Christensen, who was the one who had the idea of putting Beale on this angry man formatted show. She's also the character who is constantly made an example of by the film. She's a critique on a whole generation, which was the first generation to have grown up with television. The movie is constantly talking about how people in real life are so desensitized.
That would have been fascinating to watch, the transition into television becoming pervasive. I mean, because we see the smartphone. I think that's in the internet. We got two, I would say, comparable advents over the past, 30 years or so to see society shift, like pivot majorly. I mean, from just being online to the AIM messengers, you know what I'm saying, to now where it's just in your pocket, Smartphones and the internet definitely coalesce in their Venn diagram is a big common sector, but yeah, watching that too and how everybody's just stuck in it and it's how it fundamentally changed human behavior. I bet you TV, maybe even more so because there was nothing like that yet. Certain radio was the closest it got that affected how people, because when you can see something, you can imitate it. It started pushing an image out and pushing these things out that you couldn't do before. I bet you did a lot to truncate individualism That's fascinating to think about. I want to look into that.
Ties to everything: murder, war, famine, struggle, injustice. It's all on the same level as relationship drama, scripted conflict, love, alcohol, drugs. It's all just entertainment. Now, this point is very poignant for the time, of course, but I think that message has only gotten stronger over time, especially for people my age, the older Gen Zs like me who are, 22 or 21 and up, and we're the first generation to not know a life away from the internet, a life without social media. When I was a teenager, the way I would flirt with girls was over BBM and Skype calls. It completely changed lives and how we act in social settings. And to say the cliche, we're more
BlackBerry
connected
Messenger
than ever, and everybody is
Never had a
lonelier
BlackBerry.
than ever. But I'm not here on some fucking boomer shit. I think the internet is glorious and probably the best invention ever made. It's an endless resource of connectivity, knowledge, entertainment. There's spaces for all kinds of people into all kinds of things. It revolutionized every industry in unimaginable ways, and its existence is genuinely a blessing. But as we all know, it isn't all amazing. It can be a breeding ground of hate and fear-mongering. Social media is a marketing tool for yourself. And there's a speech in Network where the ex-News Division president Max is talking to Diana, and he's explaining that because she thinks
It is wild. It is a marketing tool for yourself, and everybody's a brand now, And I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm not guilty of the same thing. I mean, all my music is on my social media. That's really what I'm selling. I don't do a lot of personal, but it is selling a brand or pushing a brand. And I guess selling a brand too. Even on here, you know what I mean? It's consistent with that, you know what I mean? And which is consistent with me, but at the end of the day, that means that I've made a brand consistent with myself, and it's tied to the brand of my band and my group for hip-hop, New Age X and Modern BC, so it is fascinating. It did not used to be like this, just for people at once upon a time, right?
everything is a story, life is a script. She has no focus on what life really is. He is her only glimpse into reality because every other social connection she has is shadowed by numbers, ratings, ideas, and the network. He's the only thing that's real, and she simply isn't able to understand that. She doesn't know how to properly deal with actual interaction. All he asks of her is to love him, flaws and all, and she just doesn't know how to. Because there isn't a script for love. There isn't a playwright in the world that could write
Look at that.
and
Rub them
articulate
shoulders, girl.
love, just a facsimile of it. And when you're raised
Shoulders,
by
I
the
gotta
TV,
get a
that's
hold of them
your
shoulders.
truth. That's your world, your fashion, your
blades.
beliefs, your personality, but it cannot prepare you for the unpredictability.
Yo, I mean, I'm not even mad at him because this shit is so raunchy now. But yo, old sex scenes are hilarious to watch, man. He's just rubbing the shoulders like nobody's moving. You see how her back was all arched? Oh man, I'll say they're more decent, but they're also hilarious. They're basically wonder like how are people getting down back in the day? That's a whole different topic.
Of human emotion. And in the modern world where everything
hunchback,
is
shoulder
posted
blades.
somewhere, every act, a baby shower, a wedding, a birthday, a date, every time you take a walk, every movie you see, every interaction you have, it is making your life a spectacle, something strictly for an audience. It makes
More
every
school
single piece
clocks.
of food you eat a performance, and that changes you as a person. We're a generation of attention-seeking whores, me included. I do YouTube, for fuck's sake. I beg for comments at the end of every video. I crave the interaction. And though I don't use any social media besides Twitter other than obviously this, which I rarely ever mention my real life on, it's all still a performance of some kind. This voice I use to present these videos isn't really how I talk in real life. It's just my way of speaking proper, being accessible, trying to capture a wider audience and make myself more palatable for you. Because we're not just attention-seeking whores for the sake of it.
There is a thing, though, to say. There's a lot to say about authenticity, man. I mean, I think it makes it a lot easier, especially if you are somebody who I feel like has built yourself, or I feel like that feels like they've built themselves into somebody that's, well-rounded and has good perspective in this world. I mean, why put on a presentation? I mean, you already are well-rounded and on point, right? So if you feel like that, you can just be yourself, and it's just easy just to whoosh. I'm not saying you're always going to be right about how you're doing things and never have any missteps, but a lot easier than playing a character every time you have to click something or having to alter yourself or presenting an altered version of yourself to be more palatable. You know, I understand time and a place for certain things and how to talk, but man, that ain't for me. I'm not gonna lie. I like to shoot it straight and be me, not to think about it. It's more comfortable that way, man. You know. So this voice y'all hear, what y'all see on here, that's how I talk. That's how I am. I don't hit no switches. I don't fake the funk. I'm not giving you no extras. I'm not taking anything off. You know what I mean? You just getting me. Wrong, right, indifferent, happy, sad, mad, glad, you know, all of that.
We're not attention-seeking whores because the attention is so widely abundant, because it isn't. We're attention seekers because the internet has destroyed millions of people's self-esteem. People judge themselves on their interactions on social media. Our experiences are currency. Our life is a commodity that we share. People compare themselves to others constantly, despite knowing they're comparing themselves to gods. They're comparing themselves to something they can't achieve. They're posting on the same platform as models, superstars, singers, footballers, rappers, actors, and we wonder why we're a generation of anxiety-riddled, depressed pods of emptiness. We're all just trying to achieve something that isn't real, that doesn't exist. COVID-19 and lockdowns and things like that have...
It's true, man. I think you should be, as long as you're happy with what you get and you enjoy the process of what you're doing and you do what you're passionate about, I don't see how you can really go wrong. You know what I mean? Because if you stick with something, something's going to come of it. But, you know, like, it's the whole always needing more thing, I think, that gets people, you know? I mean, yeah, we want to grow and we want to sustain and have things that produce for us. But at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to be produced for. You got to be happy if that's the case. You know what I mean? And people ought to just keep getting more. We see what we're getting. We're going to cover somebody like that later on with Elon Musk in his company town. You know, at one point, enough's enough, and you can spread the love and the wealth. You know what I'm saying?
Done some irreparable damage to a lot of people's psyches, and they haven't recovered. I mean, I went to the cinema just the other day to go and see The Dive, and the couple in front of me spoke the entire time. They recorded entire scenes on their phones, and there was no shame in it. And this isn't an isolated event. This happens so often. I mean, if you just go on Twitter after a movie comes out, you'll see a full 2-minute clip of it recorded on phones everywhere. This has become normalized because a lot of people don't even know how to act in public anymore. But this is just one layer of network and how that message has evolved, because we haven't even mentioned the main theme of the film, which is the modern day Messiah. Beale is worshipped and beloved for what people thought was telling the truth. You know, because at the time, people idolized the guy on the 21-inch screen. The TV was the gospel, so the man preaching it must be the Messiah. This has only gotten worse in a modern context because we don't just have one or two anymore. With the vastness of the internet, we have so many false prophets across the board for every kind of person. There's the Andrew Tates of the world who make wannabe alpha male incels feel valid for their views on women, which are rooted in deep misogyny.
They love choosing this picture, man, and it do make them look bad, genetically recessive. That's all you see it is. I'll put it like that. Fuck. That's hey.
And teenage boys are the target demographic of this gospel. We have the Ricky Gervaises and the Bill Maher's of the world, and they preach, you know, everything is bullshit. I'm counterculture. They're trying to cancel me. I'm just speaking the truth. I'm saying it as it is. And they're not. They're just cunts. We have Trump, who promised an America that never existed to a whole bunch of people who were tricked into believing it did.
Yeah.
We have music
fucking
artists,
crazy.
actors, political leaders,
again, great again.
influencers
What?
who trick people into believing their bullshit. And what's crazy is Howard Beale is clearly having a mental breakdown due to the downfall of his life and career, and the people quite literally running the show are using it for clout, exploiting his condition for ratings and investments. Outrage sells, fear sells, and we do this still. Kanye West, a genius musician, and I mean that, clearly mentally unwell, and has been going through a lot of trauma and complex mental health issues, and people don't seem to care.
Kanye.
At the height of it
Speaking
all,
of cunts.
slavery was a choice stuff, the onstage outburst, the public divorce. What happened? He had a Netflix documentary drop that was insanely successful. He was diagnosed with bipolar and it became an album cover and a selling point. But in the end, when these messiahs are no longer preaching what we want them to, and their so-called truth no longer sells, they're killed. Now, in Bill's case, that was literal, but in the internet age, it's getting cancelled, or people just simply not liking you anymore. This is not exactly the same, but the fall of Taika Waititi in the public's favour should be studied. One bad movie destroyed his entire perception as a filmmaker, because that's who we are as a hive. It's true what Beale said. The person is dead. The individual does not matter anymore. We're a collective.
Brand.
We make collective decisions and act as a collective. And what
Of
happens
brands.
when Beale is killed live on air? Nothing. It's reported on, but it's drowned out by everything else happening because people are desensitized to something that insane and everything is just happening at the same time, and no more is that true than now. There is so much noise constantly, and there is so much terror and fear in the world, and it has equal space to live as absolute nonsense, which is fine and valid. We need escape from the real world and from the horrors of reality, but we are so used to our forms of escapism that we're simply unequipped for the horrors of reality. Coronavirus was an incredible mess across the board, especially in the UK, and it really shouldn't have been, not to the extent it was, and it's because people were socially unequipped. They were selfish, entitled, scared, and stupid, and it led to a lot more pain and suffering than necessary. And I know this video didn't seem like it was much about network, but I make all of these rants to say every single pocket of commentary network has to offer on TV and the generation it raised applies tenfold to the internet and social media and the generation that raised.
Agreed.
The points are only made more clearer and more painful now. And like I said, I don't think the internet and social media is inherently evil. I be on that shit because it isn't evil. But we are all aware it has some undeniable social effects that we can't even begin to understand yet. The studies that need to be done haven't even begun and haven't even been thought of yet. And
they're going to delay them.
Saying anything original, we all
Anybody who owns social media platforms is going to delay any study onto the effects of them. Guaranteed. Looking at Elon's moving, yeah, and Zuckerberg and all them, they're not going to play nice with those studies at all.
Know this, but I'm trying to say how impressive it is that a film about society and the impact of a technological advancement of the time made in 1976 is still relevant and even more so nearly 50 years later. But that's just me. Have you seen Network? If so, let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think of this video. I read
movie.
every single
Good
comment and reply
video
to
on
as
the
many
movie.
as possible.
Hell yeah. Crit pick. All right, so I want to find a couple of scenes here. So that's another film analysis. Let's go to the scene though. Howard Beale. Fuck it. We're just gonna type it in because there's two scenes I want to watch before we move on to the next one. Short ones. See my damn keyboard. Man, my mouse is a keyboard game right now. So lacking. Come on. You saw that. All right, so we're going to go here. Yep, these are the two scenes right there. So here we go.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it.
Tell me that don't all fit what all of us have been seeing and living through for years now. Years and years now. Just that opening statement alone is 1976. You know what I mean? That's what, 49 years ago? Woo! That's a hell of a fucking, what am I looking for the guy's antenna into the future? This is a hell of an antenna into the future, man.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we have
Air unfit to breathe, food unfit to eat. America is so unhealthy and obese, it's wild. Pollution is out of control, and they're only trying to remove regulations, make it worse.
15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
All
It's
of
like
us.
everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not good.
Yeah, everyone wants, the modern creature comforts. And then also we get the bread and circuses thrown at us all the time. You know what I mean? The distractions. And people know. We know how bad it is, but so many people don't want to confront it because cognitive dissonance is too uncomfortable. So they just want to, they get further and close in their little sanctuary in their cocoon. It's just wild, man.
I'm gonna leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got...
How was all of this so on point? Like it's like if you could make a remake about this right now, do the scene word for word and it would fit 2025.
to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to
Classic
get up
line.
right now. Get up, go to your windows, open them, and
Look
stick
how they're
your head out
reacting,
and
you
yell,
know?
I'm
It's
as
wild.
mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Sensationalize it.
How many stations does this
Even
go
though
on
it's
at?
true.
67.
I know it goes to Louis.
Even though it's true, they're gonna try to leverage it. You know what I mean? You gotta make the truth look ridiculous sometimes when it gets out there if that's the game you're playing. So then people won't believe it. It'll fall right in line and blend in with the fiction.
We're not going to take this anymore. Then we'll figure out what to do about the depression and the inflation and the oil crisis. But first, get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Who are you talking to, Herb?
CGG Atlanta.
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Herb?
Are they yelling in
Are they yelling in Atlanta?
First, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm...
Notice how there's no concern or conversation about the subject matter of what he's talking about on the production side and what they're doing. You know? Dollars, 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 baby.
I'm not going to take this anymore.
They're yelling in Baton Rouge.
Look how happy she is.
Get up out of your...
Son of a bitch!
If that don't tell you the divide.
Stick your head out of the window, open it, and stick your head out and keep yelling and yell, I'm as mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore. Just get up from your chairs right now. Go to
Where
the
you
window.
going? I wanna see if
Everybody
anybody's
just go to the
yelling.
window, open it, and stick your head out and yell and keep yelling. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore.
I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm mad
Everybody's pissed off right now.
as hell and
Tell me this ain't the vibes right now in America and beyond. Tell me this ain't the vibes. No matter what side you on, everybody pissed off. It's bubbling, man. Shbubbling. Shbubbling. Got the ball over. Melted pot's boiling out. Yeah, lightning. I love how it's lightning. No wind though. No wind at all. All right, we get the point on that one. Let's move on to the next scene. This next one is the one that sticks with me even more than that one. This explains, this scene is the most prophetic in the movie to me. And explanatory, because it's how things were at the time, but it's even more extreme by magnitudes now, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. Yup, network. Come on. All right, so to set it up, after Howard started going live about things and exposing stuff and, you know, blowing the whistle, so to speak, this is the reaction on the corporate side. They pull him in to have a talk.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow.
Scratch my
Tidal
nose.
gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, Rins, rubles, pounds, and shekels.
You heard him. Currency, baby. That monero. What's that money? That song that is Kevin Samuels is always playing, man. Money world. What's that? El mundo quiere dinero. Quiere dinero. El mundo quiere dinero. The whole world wants money. That's what's making it go around.
It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
Motherfucker breathing hard.
Am I getting to it, Mr. Beale?
Yeah, that switch up too. That switch up. How you go from you will atone? Am I getting through to you, Mr. Bill? Like that's a wild switch up. That's wild. Sociopathic corporate oligarch shit right there, baby.
You get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon.
Yeah, I heard
Those
him.
are the nations of the world today.
Yeah, I heard him.
What do you think the Russians talk about in their councils of state? Karl Marx? They get out their linear programming charts,
Karl Marx.
statistical decision theories, Minimax solutions, and compute the price-cost probabilities of their transactions and
Min-max.
investments, just like we do. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
You heard him.
Yeah.
And everyone's saying, Trump's a businessman. We need a businessman to run. Why do you think someone like that is placed where they're at or in a position like that? Because everything's a business now. It's not about morality. It's not about humanity. It's not about what's good for the people. Come on. When's the last time you saw a regime in power do what's good for the people in mass? When's the last time you saw a billionaire really help the people out? If Elon Musk really wanted to help the American people live a better life, and he wanted to help out with cuts and all of that, the dude could do so much to make American life better. Elon could end homelessness by himself. He also had some very rich friends he could team up with to ease that burden, so they could still be the richest 3 people in the world, even if they ended homelessness. So they don't want to help, or else they'd already be helping. You see what I'm saying?
It has been since man crawled out of the slime. And our children will live, Mr. Beale, to see that perfect world in which there's no war or famine, oppression or brutality. One vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit. in which all
Slavery,
men will hold a
subjugation.
share of stock. All necessities provided.
What happened to my stream? Hold on.
All anxieties tranquilized.
Hold on. My stream. What the hell, man? Of course, I credited these videos. Why is it telling me this? Huh. Well, it says unavailable. I don't know if it's still streaming. We'll see if this shit comes back on. This is pretty whack. Come back. I'm not playing this shit no more. Don't be ridiculous. It's a fun game to play, though. Figure out, you know. Well, we'll see if it brings anything back. God damn. Then it cut me off. They don't want people analyzing this, although it's already on your platform, y'all. How? How is this? What? This don't make no damn sense, man. My shit is paused, but oh man. Hopefully it comes back soon. Hopefully it comes back soon. Bring me back. Bring me back. This is stupid. Stop it. Stop it. Leave me the fuck alone. Hell no, man. Get out of here. Are we back? Hey, we're back. We're back. That was an interesting little pause. But I guess that's what that's what I get for taking the risk of showing you a movie scene, even though it's on a channel that's not from the people who put the movie out. Anyway, next up, we're gonna look at another thought piece on a movie that's predicted a lot of things, and we're gonna jump over to Idiocracy here. Wait a minute, hold on. No, They Live is next. I'm sorry. Let me not get out of order. We're going to They Live. And for those who don't know, They Live is a movie with Roddy Piper with the sunglasses, and when he puts them on, he can see, you know, through all the advertising BS and the propaganda, he can see what they're really trying to say. He can also see who's really human and who are those that are subjecting humans to all of this propaganda and control and benefiting from it. The benefactors, so to speak. Not the benefactors for real, but you know how they act. But yeah, so they're aliens basically. So fascinating movie. Everybody should watch it. Entertaining as hell. The longest fight scene of all time is in that movie. It's hilarious. OneDrive, you need to shut the hell up. You've been popping up too much. Microsoft, you are so damn invasive. I swear to God, leave me the hell alone. I'll do what I want with my Windows. All right? But here we go. We're going to jump into this little analysis on They Live. And hopefully I don't get cut off again because that's just funny. That's just funny, man. It happens, though. probably not the last time.
Imagine, if you will, a world in which everything you're exposed to is fake. A world in which you are nothing more than a puppet on a string. A world in which the reality you perceive is a mirage, nothing more than an intricate multi-dimensional facade. 35 years ago, John Carpenter created one of the most remarkable movies ever created on the subject of ideology, and the movie was completely ignored. However,
John
They
Carpenter
Live is arguably the most important movie ever made. Almost 4 decades from its release, its overarching message has never been as important or as poignant as it is today. They Live wasn't fiction.
It's not lying. This movie might be my favorite movie of all time. It's crazy. If you have not seen this movie, I'm telling you, do it.
It was a prophecy. Roddy Piper, known as Nada in the film, is a
Roddy
disillusioned drifter
Piper.
who travels to Los Angeles in search of employment. There he befriends a construction worker named Frank and settles in a shantytown. As time passes, Nada becomes increasingly aware of suspicious activities taking place in the squatter settlement, with some inhabitants regularly congregating in a nearby church. However, following a violent police raid in the church, Nada decides to investigate what exactly is going on here. Shortly after discovering a cryptic message on the wall that reads, "They live, we sleep," Nada finds a pair of suspicious-looking sunglasses. While
They live, we sleep. Tell me that ain't the truth.
wandering the streets of LA, Nada decides to try on his newfound shades. This is when They Live really comes to life, and the protagonist's existence is met with an existential shift. The sunglasses, in a very literal sense, change Nada's perspective. They shatter his concept of reality. In addition to causing him to experience black and white vision and a headache, the shades also allow Nada to see the world in a brand new light. Advertisements now read "Obey." Magazines in a shop contain messages like "Do not question authority and consume." And even dollar bills bear the message, "This is your God." Nada realizes that he, like almost every
Such a great comparison to what happens when you pull the veil back and you actually analyze shit and you can never see it the same again. The message never lands once you understand the game. You know what I mean? You just understand it's a chess move and an influence they're trying to leverage upon you. As a great, that sunglasses method of delivering that is an amazing visual.
other human is a slave to an all-pervading system. By wearing the glasses, Nada is able to see through the deception and uncover the true meaning behind everything. The lies, the deceit, the master plan to enslave humanity. Breaking free, Nada realizes, is the only option here, and Nada is utterly horrified when he sets his eyes upon a man sporting an elegant suit and an opulent-looking watch, only to be confronted with a repulsive, decomposing countenance. This is the epitome of they, the privileged class transformed into a hideous, alien-like species. They live by exploiting us. We are their fuel. They are parasites and we are their unsuspecting hosts. Don't
it feel like some shit like that's going on? Like, humanity has been subjected to something. It's wild how nothing works in our favor as the masses, man. I've wondered this my whole life. How can you order war and do all these things and just such brutal acts against humanity if you were a human and had a conscience and empathy? I almost was like a kid. I'm not saying this was happening, but when I was a kid, I was like, maybe it's not humans making the decisions, because how could a human do this? And I know there's evil, depraved, callous, psychotic, and sociopathic humans, so it's possible. But I mean, it feels more like this to me, you know?
are the self-appointed herders, and we are their subservient livestock. While they profit and plunder, we sleep, oblivious to the subliminal messages that we are being fed. Does this sound familiar? If not, it really should. We are constantly bombarded with advertisements with subliminal messaging, imploring us to purchase some product or believe in some ideology. However, the most effective advertisements act in a subtle yet potent way. David Ogilvy, the father of modern day advertising, famously said, "A good advertisement is one which sells the product without drawing attention to itself." And the fact is not lost on the unscrupulous advertisers of today. On any given day, you're exposed to hundreds, if not thousands of different advertisements, which might seem like an absurdly high number until you realize almost every single post on social media is an advertisement.
There's a lot of mind fucking that they're attempting to do to you day in and day out, day in, day out. It's insidious if you really sit back and think about it. Think about what it would take for you to try to just push your ideas on somebody all day, every day, and go through their phone, go into their phone and on their TV. You know what I mean? You'd probably feel like a piece of shit. No, I would.
You might not notice them at a conscious level, but they notice you and they are affecting you. Subliminal messages can be found on TV, social media, in movies, music videos, and even kids' cartoons. These hidden signals are strategically inserted into advertising messages with the intention of influencing the subconscious behavior of the target audience. The use of such advertising tactics is often deemed unethical, and in certain cases, even prohibited by law. Nevertheless, the subliminal messages persist. Carpenter expertly satirizes the excessive commercialism of the 80s, emphasizing the control exerted by corporations over the masses. Although Carpenter was a visionary, he can never have dreamed of the world we're in today, where companies with more money and power than countries have plugged themselves into every aspect of your life. Then there's companies like Amazon, with a market value 4 times bigger than Austria's GDP. Much of this comes from tracking your online behavior, harvesting your data, then weaponizing this information obtained to target you, or use it in the Washington Post to sell you more garbage, to sell you more political ideologies, to keep the whole machine well oiled. Humans' love for shopping is undeniable. However, have you ever actually asked yourself why this is the case? Or more specifically, who is actually responsible for our insatiable urge to shop until we drop? Well, a significant portion of our shopping behavior can be attributed to one man, Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, the controversial psychologist who said all humans are driven by unconscious forces. Bernays was a pioneer in the fields of public relations and propaganda. He is widely recognized for introducing modern PR techniques, such as utilizing celebrities to endorse products, employing metaphors to sway public opinion, and using symbols to evoke emotions. And while these techniques may seem innocent, or even harmless at a first glance, their purpose was to manipulate individuals into purchasing unnecessary or unwanted items. As is clear to see, Bernays' master plan works splendidly. For him, that is, not us. This festive season, nearly 40% of Americans will go into...
What a thing to study and dedicate your life to. Manipulation of human minds. I don't see how you can be that much of a bastard. You know, like that's wild to me. Manipulation on that level and to that extent is you're trying to steer the evolution of a species. That's at the end of the day either the goal or an effect of your goal.
Debt to pay for presents and other holiday-related expenses. At the same time, many of these people have zero emergency savings, nothing, not 1 cent, just another hamster on the wheel. And Bernays believed that he could convince people to buy products based on emotions rather than practicality. He could generate demand for previously unappealing or unknown items. To achieve this, he developed techniques that aim to tap into our subconscious desires and establish an emotional connection between a product and its consumer. In essence, he artificially created a need for certain products by exploiting our emotions. Consequently, because of America's cunning ways, we have witnessed decades of overconsumption. Bernays, often hailed as the pioneer of public relations, published his influential masterpiece Propaganda in 1928. In this groundbreaking and dystopian work, he plumbed the depths of human minds, emphasizing that public relations should not be diminished as a mere trick, but rather recognized as an essential tool for controlling the purchasing behaviors of the masses. Quote, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses," he wrote, "is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government which is the true ruling power of our country."
Could you spell it out any more succinctly than that? The true ruling power of the country is those who are the ones that have the apparatus to control the minds and behaviors, have the data sets that they've been compiling for over a century. You know, stuff they brought over from places like Nazi Germany, you know, and all those insidious experiments they did where they would test, you know, like hypothermia, like how long humans could live in hypothermic conditions, what their bodies were doing in real time, stuff like that, you know? Like they were doing brutal things. Putting on boots, seeing tested endurance, the way they tested boots. Run around the track, walk around the track. 2 people to 1 pair of boots, and those boots always got to be in motion. So if one takes a break, they pass it off. You got to get the laps in every day, and it puts you down if you stop. You know what I'm saying? Even down to testing products, not just the limits on humans in their physical limits, but products. They would treat the testing like that way. Or treat the testing like that with humans and conduct themselves that way. It's wild. It's wild. And then you look at this. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. the conscious and intelligent manipulation. So democracy really is just an open forum for those in control to steer the masses. It's interesting. If the people do not hold the power themselves and hold themselves accountable to what it is, and that they're the ones that keep it safe. The safekeepers, however you want to say it, of democracy is the people, if it's truly a democracy. Because I'm not going to say the mercy, because not all of us lend ourselves to be at the mercy of it, but largely, a lot of us are at the mercy because of ignorance and unawareness of all of these attempts to sway your psyche and to steer you and to gather data on you and to get you to pass your resources off to the rich. The haves versus the have-nots, man. The haves got a lot of tricks up their sleeve. The have-nots is up here where the battle is won, I promise you. That's where that whole stay woke came from. Everyone bastardized the term. Stay woke wasn't about, social acceptance and all that. It was about awareness. Awareness of what's going on and keeping yourself safe with that awareness. That's the origin. Go listen 100 years ago when that shit came up about black people traveling the South and being safe. Knowing where to go, knowing how to conduct yourself, knowing where to avoid.
Like Freud, he believed that, quote, "We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, and our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. It is they who pull the wires that control the public
100%.
mind." And after witnessing the remarkable effectiveness of propaganda in previous wars, Bernays pondered over its potential usefulness in times of peace. However, due to the negative associations that propaganda has garnered, Bernays advocated for the term public relations. In other words, modern-day PR is simply a glorified version of wartime propaganda.
Remember that every time you hear public relations and PR, propaganda, you should just substitute that word in there.
Drawing on the insights of his colorful uncle, Bernays developed an approach he dubbed the engineering of consent. In short, the guru provided influential clients, including General Electric, Procter & Gamble, the American Tobacco Company, and the media giant CBS, with the tools to, quote, "control and regiment the masses according to our will without their knowing about it." To do so, he said it was necessary to circumvent the rational part of the mind and go straight for the jugular. In this,
Add lobbyists and money and politics and bribery into the mix. That's why shit don't never go in the favor of the masses. I'm telling you, oligarchy, there should be no billionaires. There shouldn't be. They are the scourge of society.
this case, the unconscious. A century ago, it was customary for Americans to have a light breakfast consisting of coffee, a slice of bread, and maybe some cereal. However, Bernays decided to explore the idea of a heartier morning meal, ostensibly for better health. Seeking professional advice, Bernays consulted the agency's doctor, who confirmed that starting the day with a more substantial meal would provide individuals with increased energy. Shortly after, Bernays requested the doctor reach out to 5,000 fellow doctors and inquire about their stance on the matter. And surprisingly, over 4,500 doctors responded affirmatively, agreeing with the idea of a heavier breakfast for improved health. Armed with this overwhelming response, Bernays seized the opportunity to craft a compelling narrative. The newspaper headlines soon proclaimed, 4,500 physicians advocate for Americans to embrace substantial breakfast to enhance their well-being. Many of these articles highlighted bacon and eggs as the quintessential components of a real American morning meal. Bernays also applied Freudian psychology to instant cake mix. Yes, cake mix. During World War II, this formula was created to simplify the process of cooking or baking food. By simply adding water to the dry ingredients mix and heating it up, you can make food in no time, but housewives for some reason weren't buying it. They resisted purchasing the mix. So Bernays realized that when housewives simply added water to the mix, they felt a sense of guilt deep within their subconscious.
Damn, you see how his head moving? I don't know what the hell he's saying, but he talking like he just know better than your ass. Yeah, motherfucker, you stupid motherfuckers are so simple. I got you decoded, and I'll make you do whatever the fuck I want with my subconscious suggestions, and you don't even know I'm doing it, because I'm the real fucking secret governor of this bitch. Motherfucker, I'm Bernays. Motherfucker.
Why? Because they felt they contributed very little to the process. Building upon this revelation, the recipe was then altered to include a couple of eggs, and the inclusion worked as planned. According to Freudian psychology, the woman's act of offering her eggs to her husband should be seen
fucked up as he was right.
gift. This gesture not only eliminates guilt, but also holds a deeper significance. In Freudian theory, the egg symbolizes life and birth, adding a profound meaning to the creation of the cake. In this way, the housewife metaphorically gives birth to something special for her husband. And Bernays' impact on how we view and consume items simply can't be overstated, and this fact was not lost on John Carpenter. And They Live provides us with an answer to this whole situation, albeit a deeply unsettling one. Nada, Piper's character's name, is Spanish for nothing. In the eyes of the elite, which includes corporate executives, marketing magnates and politicians, we are, as Nada's name suggests, nothing. Why concern yourself with ethical dilemmas when your target audience, which consists of billions of people, are deemed insignificant objects, meat suits who deserve to be manipulated, molded, and mercilessly exploited? Nada is a representation of the everyday citizen. For many of us, however, the truth is too painful to confront. For many, ignorance is synonymous with bliss. So Nada urges Frank, his friend, to wear the sunglasses.
And you got ignorance. I keep looking at the mic like it's my camera. I gotta get used to But you got ignorance, you got bliss. And that barrier, you got ignorance and bliss, then you got awareness, right? And that barrier to reaching from one to the other is cognitive dissonance. And you gotta be willing to travel through that shit. And that is a turbulent, radioactive belt you gotta travel through. For a lot of people, it's unbearable.
In order for him to see the ways things really are. However, Frank, obviously aware of the brutal realities that await him if he accepts the request, actually refuses to wear the glasses.
Put them on.
With a family to support,
Yo, that is the longest fight scene of all time. It is hilarious. It's literally, because you know Roddy Piper, or maybe you don't, you do, I don't know. He was a WWF wrestler back in the 80s and 90s. Hey, we wrestled for a long time. But they full on have a straight up like match, choreographed match damn near. It's hilarious, man. If you want a good laugh, you could just watch that fight scene. Watch the whole movie. It's good.
Frank says he couldn't bear the harsh reality of knowing his entire life is just a lie. Nada, however, is having none of it. After a rather surreal fight scene that lasts several minutes, Nada forces the sunglasses onto Frank's face.
Look at them, they're everywhere.
Maybe they can see our fifth and spring.
Snitching.
From that moment on, Frank's life changes forever. Now, Carpenter's sunglasses idea turns the script on its head. His commenter here calls to remove our rose-tinted glasses in order to see things in an objective manner. Carpenter, however, makes the case that what we perceive as objective truth is in fact a carefully curated simulation. We are, as the movie suggests, cogs in a forever turning wheel. Resources who are being mined financially, psychologically, and spiritually. But we can only realize this fact by donning the glasses, not taking them off. So Nada and Frank then join forces with a group of individuals who have also experienced the effects of the sunglasses. There they form an underground resistance movement. Through a series of intense, violent confrontations, they successfully infiltrate the secret gathering place of the extraterrestrial elites. Their bravery is, in the end, rewarded, but it requires sacrifice and huge amounts of pain, and a willingness to accept some cold, harsh reality. At its core, They Live is a film about the eternal struggle for individuality, autonomy, and the noble pursuit of truth. And Carpenter encourages each and every viewer to question the overarching narrative that permeates their life, and to ask loudly and unapologetically if they are being influenced by ominous external forces. But it's important to note that this masterpiece was inspired by 8 o'clock in the morning, a short story written 60 years ago. You see, when we think of dystopian fiction, our minds usually go to 1984, but right now, since Tale, which inspired Carpenter, who would later inspire the makers of The Matrix, is perhaps the most important and most
Alright, I'm using my
story
other
of the
mic cord from
20th
now on.
century.
This thing
The
is
plot surrounds George Nada, an apparently ordinary, rather unremarkable individual who finds himself in a situation where he becomes aware of a conspiracy orchestrated by extraterrestrial beings. These aliens possess the ability to manipulate reality and utilize the media as a means to subdue and dominate the
Can't
human
even
race,
touch this
which
damn thing.
sounds awfully relevant, doesn't it? George's awakening then occurs
Yo,
after an
check.
experience with a
Alright, there we go.
hypnotist that takes a weird turn, with the protagonist now possessing the ability to perceive non-human faces, known as fascinators, scattered throughout society.
Oh, I'm running that
However,
back.
George,
I was
the only truly awakened
working on
alien
that
in
snap,
existence,
crackle, and
quickly
pop.
realized perceive non.
Let's see here.
Want to note that this masterpiece was inspired by 8 o'clock in the morning, a short story written 60 years ago. You see, when we think of dystopian fiction, our minds usually go to 1984, but Ray Nelson's Tale, which inspired Carpenter, who would later inspire the makers of The Matrix, is perhaps the most important and most overlooked short story of the 20th century. The plot surrounds George Nada, an apparently ordinary, rather unremarkable
Makers of The Matrix stole that damn story and didn't give the writer any credit or any of that piece of the movie, man. That's fucked up. Allegedly, the court case, I believe, is done and she won. But it explained a lot of theory of mine, like, I have a new theory. Why did the movies just dip in quality and lore almost as they went? I mean, especially by the third one. It was just nothing compared to that first one. It's because if you aren't the one who came with the source material, how are you going to have the spiritual connection to create an adequate sequel? You know what I mean? That's going to have as much spirit and passion and love put into it, you know? takes time to come up with something that details. You gotta really love it to not just want to get done with it after a while. You don't keep it's gotta be perfect. If you lacking that, man, you're never gonna be able to match it. Not that's my theory. Is they didn't have that same connection. That what's her name? Sophia Stewart, I want to say is her name. Let's look that up real quick. Sophia Stewart. Boom. Let's see here. I think that's her name. Just make sure I'm getting it right. Yep. Sophia Stewart wins Matrix lawsuit against Wachowski brothers in 2013. She wrote The Terminator 2. Matrix is a sequel to The Terminator. Very fascinating woman.
Remarkable individual who finds himself in a situation where he becomes aware of a conspiracy orchestrated by extraterrestrial beings. These aliens possess the ability to manipulate reality and utilize the media as a means to subdue and dominate the human race. Which sounds awfully relevant, doesn't it? George's awakening then occurs after an experience with a hypnotist that takes a weird turn, with the protagonist now possessing the ability to perceive non-human faces, known as fascinators, scattered throughout society. However, George, the only truly awakened civilian in existence, quickly realizes that if he displays any indication of his awareness, the fascinators will instantly order him to revert to his previous state, or worse, end his life. In essence and in structure, Nelson's tale reflects Carpenter's adaptation. A man named Nada, an average Joe, discovers that the world we perceive is not what it seems, that the buildings, posters, television shows, architecture, advertisements, and even the people before us are just simply a facade, a veil of normalcy concealing the truth. That a race of multi-eyed snake creatures not only control the earth, but also our very thoughts and impulses. The aforementioned obey, consume, yield, etc. seems exactly the same as what's happening today with companies like BlackRock, investing into every single company that you know and controlling the message they espouse. I mean, there's a reason all companies, all advertisements, all governments seem to share the same narrative, and everyone around you probably does too. And in They Live, once he comprehends that these creatures hypnotize humanity into complacency in order to literally consume them, he then sets out to put an end to this long-standing occupation. He realizes that television is the fascinator's primary weapon, and after dispatching the creature in front of the cameras, he leaves the corpse in his chair, stands off camera, mimics the fascinator, and urges people to wake up and kill the creatures on sight. But today, as TV loses its cachet, social media platforms should be viewed as the fascinator's weapon of choice. From an early age, children are handed digital devices and social media accounts, quickly becoming iPad kids, entering worlds where they're bombarded with dangerously high amounts of advertisements and questionable ideologies. From as soon as they're born, they are influenced by the worst among us, and once they hop onto the digitally powered treadmill, they never get off. They are consumed.
We're in line at some shitty fucking humans as a result of this influencer culture and the clout chase. The great clout chase that's been going on. We are about to have some shallow, shitty people to an unprecedented. We think it's bad now. Just wait till the ones that grew up on this shit start taking the reins of society.
Humans or slaves for life. In certain aspects, Nelson's no-nonsense storytelling technique proves advantageous to the narrative here. Its ultimate objective is to utilize science fiction and adventure as a subversive tool, effectively addressing the numbing impact of American culture on its people. It has been hijacked. At the time of They Live's release, Carpenter only expressed his dissatisfaction with the economic policies of then US President Ronald Reagan, commonly known as Reaganomics, as well as the increasing commercialization in popular culture and politics during that time. Carpenter actually stated that the premise of the movie involved the so-called Reagan Revolution being controlled by aliens from another galaxy. These extraterrestrial beings insisted Carpenter taking over the world and were exploiting Earth as if it were a third world planet. Carpenter wearily observed that everything we saw in television was designed to sell us something, from fast food to fast cars. The messages relayed to us emphasize the significance of consumerism, and today it's only so much worse. Every influencer you see today is showing off their new rich lifestyle. People with the newest Bugattis, the best suits, the Rolexes, living in Dubai, in luxury penthouses. And these are supposed to be our saviors from the other side of the spectrum, the established corporations and governments that espouse the same nonsense opinions to control the population. That's why They Live is more relevant than ever today. In 2012, the philosopher Slavoj Žižek released The Pervert's Guide to Ideology, a documentary film that begins by analyzing They Live. In this analysis, Žižek utilizes the film's portrayal of special sunglasses that unveil the truth to elucidate his own interpretation of ideology. According to Žižek, the sunglasses serve as a form of criticism towards ideology. They enable individuals to perceive the genuine message concealed beneath the layers of propaganda, glamour, and posters. And by donning these sunglasses, one becomes aware of the presence of a hidden order within democracy, which upholds the illusion of
Damn,
freedom.
his shit doing it
G-Second, in
too.
his
That
own
ain't just
unique,
mine.
rather frantic style,
crazy.
passionately implores viewers to take Carpenter's advice. And it makes sense here, because today, as we go into 2024, we are living in extremely strange times, in which the gap between the haves and have-nots continues to widen, where we are constantly bombarded with false idols, false messaging, and subliminal propaganda disguised as friendly advertisements. If ideologies are systems of socially shared ideas, beliefs, and values used to justify certain behaviors, then we have to ask, where did they begin, and who is dictating which ideologies are both acceptable and unacceptable to us? Who is determining the truth in modern society? And to answer this question, one must first reach for the glasses. Carpenter knew this, and now you do too. Your desires and programming is for someone else's benefit. The fact that you don't
Hysteria
know
up
the
in that
truth
bitch.
is the way it's supposed to be. You think what you think because you have been conditioned, often via subliminal messages, to think this way. But as they live shows, there is a way out, and you have to break free before it's too late.
So Kanye West has always been.
That's a hit. Damn, so quick. What's up, Jamari? Shout out to you, but we ain't doing that today. This ain't a Kanye day. But yeah, I'm glad we didn't get cut off in the transmission there in that one. But yeah, you see why I think that movie's so profound now, and you'll see even more if you go watch it if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, I mean, it might be time for a rewatch. I know I'm gonna rewatch it again soon. I'm due. I love that movie. It's a comedy horror documentary. The way I look at it, and that's honestly how I've, in a way, look at the world for a long time. You know, minus obviously the visual substitutions, but I see things like that ever since I really started looking into manipulation, propaganda, stuff like this as a young man. You know, it's never gonna be the same. I'm never gonna be looking at that shit like falling for the okie doke. Why is this thing tripping? Something vibrating. I think I'm gonna fix it right there. All right, cool. That was annoying the shit out of me. But yeah, They Live, super important movie, entertaining as hell, and it's a nice throwback. You know what I mean? All this high production stuff. It's just a very practically made movie, and I like it a lot. The next one, you know, is gonna be pretty crazy. This is gonna be the one that probably hits home the most for a lot of people that are younger, because it's the most contemporary. But Idiocracy, the one they call a documentary. It ain't a movie, it ain't a comedy, it's a documentary, and it becomes truer and truer by the day. First documentary to ever come out before its subject matter. That makes sense. Mike Judge, shout out to Mike
This video is
Judge.
brought to you by Ground News. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Okay, how many people watching this have seen or ever heard of a 2006 movie?
And real quick, let me give credit where credit is due. Upper Echelon is the channel you see down in the corner who did this video. I don't want to get too far into this without shouting them out. I won't forget that.
Called Idiocracy. I would guess that there's a pretty decent number of people who have, at least nowadays, but you might be surprised to learn that the movie's eventual popularity was actually never intended from the start. For those of you who have seen it, you can probably skip ahead a few minutes right now because you already know the plot, obviously. But if you haven't seen the film before, it's effectively a scathing critique of American corporatism. The main character, Joe Bowers, and a lady of the night, if you will, named Rita, become the subjects of an army experiment, cryogenic freezing in this case, but instead of 1 year, they get frozen for hundreds.
An upgrade.
After finally waking up in 25
for those who know,
I think it is, they re-enter the modern world and they find out that everyone around them is basically brain dead. Basic infrastructure is now falling apart. Everyone drinks Brondo instead of water.
Hold on, let's go back to that shot. Let's go back. Hold on, give me that. Oh my goodness. What an illustration, man. Ratchet straps, ropes. Got the buildings held up together. Schmogging. That looks like it used to be a bridge or something, or a pillar. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be. Wow, and then just like shanty town, and it looks like just a bunch of hoarders live down here. That's crazy.
Drinks Brondo instead of water, which is like a play on Gatorade. And the film is basically a never-ending string of jokes about how everyone has become an idiot, which leaves the two main characters, who are decidedly average back in the time that they come from, as the most intelligent people on all of planet Earth, simply because of basic logic, mental aptitude, and deductive reasoning. It's honestly pathetic in a sense when it comes to
Yep.
the concept of corporate advertising, at least. People buy everything.
And the lack of common sense and people seeming very profound who have like, damn, you're a fucking genius. You know, you're not. You got logic. You think in a practical fashion.
Thing that they want from a city-sized Costco facility, where they're greeted by someone who says, "Welcome to Costco. I love you." They get treated in the hospital by plugging little sensors into their mouth and their ass and their ear as well, with a drooling human operator who doesn't even really know what's happening, as the machine spits out a diagnosis for them. And all over the place, everywhere, you see a kind of logical extreme in the world of attention advertising, which now caters to people who are barely even smart enough to communicate with each other. Language has become a sort of broken slang. The most popular show on all of television is a program called Ow My Balls. And the movie even tackles the concept of hypersexualization, where
Ow, my balls. Yo. Mike Judge, you a fucking fool, bro.
Starbucks now offers hand jobs. Obviously, it's a really over the top extreme, but when you watch it, you start seeing a whole bunch of oddly similar and kind of uncomfortable parallels, which might be the reason why the film was initially suppressed. Most people don't know this, but the movie's publisher, 20th Century Fox, actually tried to kill their own product launch. They only released it in 7 different cities using the contractual minimum legal number of theaters, something like 130 as opposed to the normal 600 or 700. And they specifically did not market the release with trailers, advertisements, or press kits. Whatever their reason was, they intentionally took a budget.
Yeah, I randomly heard about this movie. I saw, you remember On Demand for like digital cable when that first came out? It was one of the movies on there, and I was like, Idiocracy. That's an interesting fucking word. All right, let me see what this is about. And I thought it would be like a documentary or something. I literally thought it was a documentary. I saw it was like a satire movie, so I watched it. It was like 2006, 2007, something like that. But yeah, I just stumbled upon it. I never had heard of it, and I didn't see anything about it. And I saw notable actors in it, so I was very confused as to how this came out. And you see like the cult classic kind of comedies that come out, the smaller ones where, you know, people that are of note, you know, make them, but they're not like huge. They're like more passion projects that you see from those people, and they become like critically acclaimed and stuff like that often, but they were never pervasive wide releases, you know. I looked at it as something maybe was like that. I could not figure it out.
Budgetary loss on their film in order to kill its reach. But over the years since, it managed to become massively popular. Now, I'm not a film critic. This isn't a video about Idiocracy as a piece of cinema. It's about how the most extreme version of hyperbolic comedy, portraying the whole world as a slobbering mass of idiotic consumers, is becoming real. And I want to make a much more data-driven argument right now about why and specifically how that appears to be happening. However, there's one key difference here. In the movie, the degradation of a human intelligence, and basic cognition for that matter, is a function of birth rates. As the more affluent portions of society struggle with choices about when or why or even if they ever want to have a child, those around them, the idiots, are breeding.
Cleave on.
The film asserts that over hundreds of years, less intelligent people having much more offspring, as a kind of twisted evolutionary inversion, overwhelms the entire population, therefore dumbing everyone down to a level where they can't even hardly think for themselves. As a commentary on predatory capitalism, in addition to that, large corporations happily step in to monetize.
Cleave on. Cleave on the new Genghis Khan. The fucking remedial Genghis, yo.
That issue, creating a sort of death spiral of sorts, ultimately resulting in people getting dumber and dumber and dumber with each passing generation, because none of them are ever forced to think for themselves. It's a fun movie, I do like it, which again has extremely uncomfortable parallels now. But setting aside the obvious and more surface level ones, like teenagers speaking with broken, grammatically absurd slang, or advertising as a concept invading deeper and deeper into our everyday lives, I want to make the argument that the cause of those issues is not a function of birth rates or genetics. It's a function of the tools that we're making, which supplant our own critical thinking. Let's get to it.
Not
I
wrong
want to take
about
a minute
that.
here and go on a bit of a tangent, I guess, because lately it feels like there's an overwhelming trend
Hold on,
where the
bro.
quality of what I call
You said going on a
consensus news seems to be going
You're
rapidly
talking about
downhill.
ground.
Maybe
You're
that's
talking about the
because way
sponsor
too
right
many
now,
people
Brody.
get their information from social media posts where the first word is breaking in all caps because it's just engagement farming, let's be real. But it's also because media standards in general have gone wildly downhill.
As
soon
a
as it stops
solution to
becoming
that, I
informative.
deliberately work with a platform called Ground News. Okay,
we go.
let me
There we
start
go.
with this. A small example first, and then we work our way up the ladder. Spell checkers. Spell checkers are ubiquitous now. Everyone has them at practically every...
Yo, this guy's speaking my mind. Because when spell checkers came out and people just were like, oh, just type, just go, like, no, I want to know how to spell the word properly. You know what I mean? And when like all the acronym LOL and all the shorthand came out, I've never been one to use it because I don't want to lose my ability to have a tight grasp on language. It's something that you can lose very easily. Use it or lose it is a real thing. And I see so many grammatical errors when people write and type. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And now we got AI crafting emails for people and all that. People write things out yourself. Express your words and everything yourself. Learn how to spell. Oh, I promise you will not regret it. Offloading that is only going to lower your capabilities in the long run.
Every single level of education and work because they're embedded directly into our devices, which means at a certain level, after a child has learned basic grammar and spelling techniques in school, they'll begin using spell checking software nearly 100% of the time in their day-to-day lives. No big deal, right? Spell checking software helps us. But what if I told you it doesn't just help us, it also stagnates us? According to the International Journal of Social Sciences and Educational Studies regarding EFL students, which is English as a foreign language, quote, with the advent of technology, writing devices are now equipped with autocorrection features that automatically corrects or generates a list of potential words to the author. This has made the task apparently easier. However, based on the cognitive load theory, when there is not enough effort and time given to complete a learning task, the chances to learn effectively reduce, end quote. Further down, quote again, having taken the aforementioned reasons and challenges into account, the primary aim of the present research is to investigate the effects of autocorrection features on spelling competence among EFL learners, end quote. This may seem like nothing, I get it, but if you go all the way down to the results on page 108, you find this, quote, the control group, participants who hand-wrote writing tasks and assignments, performed enormously better at reducing the number of misspelling words in their tasks in comparison to the experimental group who typed written tasks, end quote. Lastly, from the conclusions, obviously quoting again,
Becomes
students
a
who
part
are
of you
deeply
when
immersed in
you
using programs with auto spell checker
use yourself to
features
create it,
don't
you know,
hone
and write it
spelling
down.
competence as students who depend on handwriting due to the fact that there is more effort involved in handwriting that makes the learning more sustained, end quote. Of course, that is just one study, though it does very clearly seem to indicate that handwriting and putting in more effort will make you process learning better, and typing with a spell checker does not help you learn when it comes to English as a foreign language. But it is echoed elsewhere, right? The general premise. From University Technology Mara, a study called The Influence of Spell Checkers on Students' Ability to Generate Repairs of Spelling Errors, in the conclusion paragraph, page 10, quote, this research suggested that spell checkers have little to no effect whatsoever on students' spelling errors on the cognitive level. It did not help repair the errors, and the corrections are not internalized, thus allowing learners to repeat the same
Exactly.
error. Like I said,
You
we're
never
starting
learn.
small, but the idea of ubiquitous spell-checking software seems to indicate a stagnation of people's ability to actually improve their own spelling.
Or microwaves
which
and shit like
lets
that.
them
People can't cook no
repeatedly
more.
make similar and even identical errors without learning what is actually correct. Obviously, that's not the most harmful side effect in the world, but it's certainly not a good thing. Well, let's go one stone up, or step rather, but I'll make a comparison to a stone archway later on. And let's look at something else. Habitual use of GPS negatively impacts spatial memory during self-guided navigation. This study from the Integrated Neuroscience Program at McGill University.
I drive a lot for my job. That's not a lie. I caught myself one time asking myself, why do I still need to put this in the GPS as many times as I've been to this client's business? Why am I still punching this in? And after a while, I stopped, and I didn't need it, you know. And that's when I kind of noticed this effect and really try to mitigate it by using it maybe the first time or whatever, or looking at the directions on there and trying to make sure I memorize them and challenge my brain to start retaining stuff more. It's like phone numbers. How many phone numbers do you memorize now, or do you even remember or know off the top of your head? You know what I mean? The ones I remember are literally from the time And that was how we got down. Like new phone numbers for the most part, I don't have many or any memorized. Like I got some friends who still have the same phone numbers we've had for, or they've had for like 20 plus years or whatever. I know those, but they switch their number up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to type in the name and just tap it, you know? So it's the same thing. Same exact thing.
I believe, was designed to examine the effects of GPS reliance among everyday drivers. And without spending too much time here boring everyone to death, it determined, quote, findings suggest that regularly using GPS affects spatial memory in a dose-dependent manner. That is, the greater use of GPS, the greater decline in spatial memory over time. The lack of a concurrent decline in subjective sense of direction suggests that this relationship is likely to be causal, end quote. To be clear, I'm not making the argument that these tools should be abolished.
If you know the area you're in pretty well, read the directions as opposed to let the GPS guide you and just following the directions. I promise you will feel a sense of relief mentally that I cannot explain. Your brain will feel like it's doing its job.
Or even that the possible risks outweigh the benefits, at least not for GPS or maybe spell checkers. But if you took a 21-year-old today, right now, most of them, not all, but most, took away their access to GPS on their phone or in the car intrinsically, and told them, go on a road trip across the state now, half of them probably couldn't even do it. And if they could, it would take them an exorbitant amount of time, because they haven't properly developed the skill set of reading road signs or navigating a physical map. Once again,
I'm so
to
glad I
make this
grew up using
abundantly
maps.
clear, that's not the worst thing in the world. Lacking a skill set because you never needed to develop that skill set in the first place isn't intrinsically bad, especially if you can then figure out how to do something when it matters for yourself. But what if we go one step further now? Because even our ability...
Not gonna lie too, like maps used to be a fascination for me when I was a kid. Maps were cool as hell. You just kind of look at the lay of the land, where things go. You see names of stuff, you get curious about it. Had a sense of mystery to it, you know. I used to love maps and atlases. Man, I should bust those back out, you know. Get back into them a little bit.
Ability to think critically and solve problems is now under siege, thanks to the advent of generative tools. Picture a Roman archway. Stones on top of stones, but it never stands free or supports any weight at all without something called a keystone. The keystone is the pinnacle of that archway. It often has a slightly different shape, or it's measurably larger, while dispersing the most weight in the process, therefore supporting the entire archway as a whole. And critical thinking is the keystone of human cognition. Spell checkers and GPS programs, they're just stones, one of many in the archway. But generative tools, according to new data from researchers directly at Microsoft, if used improperly can, quote, result in the deterioration of cognitive faculties that ought to be preserved. As Bainbridge noted, a key irony of automation is that by mechanizing routine tasks and leaving exception handling to the human user, you deprive the user of the routine opportunities to practice their judgment and strengthen their cognitive musculature, leaving them atrophied and unprepared when the exceptions do arise. And
I see it everywhere. I've been lamenting this for years and years and years that nobody critically thinks. I don't mean nobody, like there's not anyone out there doing it, but the masses on average don't like to go more than one layer deep on things now. You know, they don't want to think about something past that surface level. And you see it on from complex matters down to just on the road when you're driving, something simple as that. People are just going. The amount of people who drive and do not signal their moves is baffling. It's down or up. That's all it takes. And they just go willy-nilly. They're not thinking. It's hard for me to fathom that other than the fact that they're just not thinking about it. Or the ones who choose to not do it are even worse to me. Like it's just, you're knowingly making the road more dangerous. But stuff like that where it's just, you're not even thinking. It's just autopilot, fucking automaton mode, you know? I hate it. I'm not gonna lie.
for this one, I do have to read a few more segments, not just one, because honestly, I just have to, but bear with me. Quote, the data identify key motivators for critical thinking, the desire to enhance work quality, avoid negative outcomes, and develop skills. However, several barriers inhibit this reflective process, including lack of awareness, limited motivation due to time pressure or job scope, and difficulty improving AI responses in unfamiliar domains. Surprisingly, while AI can improve efficiency, it may also reduce critical engagement, particularly in routine or lower stakes tasks in which users simply rely on AI raising concerns about long-term reliance and diminished independent problem solving, end quote. Much further down, continuing that same sort of...
And they don't want you able to solve problems. They're creating problems they want to provide solutions for, all to keep people controlled, subservient, and sending their resources upwards to them.
Logical pathway here. Quote, over-reliance on computing technology is not a novel phenomenon. However, Gen AI tools can exacerbate the associated risks. Indeed, such reliance may be tolerable for low-stakes tasks, like grammar checking, but it can lead to significant negative outcomes in high-stakes contexts, like drafting legal documents, end quote. And then lastly, thank you for sticking with me through all of this, from the conclusion paragraph, quote, while Gen AI can improve worker efficiency, it can inhibit critical engagement with work and can potentially lead to long-term over-reliance on the tool and diminished skill for independent problem solving.
If that's what you want,
It's a
go
lot
ahead
to
and
get
diminish
through,
yourself.
I know, and some
Fuck
people
that.
will laugh it
I
off
want to
as
stay
overly
sharp.
dramatized, but the keystone, the one supporting all the extra weight, is the thing that supplants our own thinking, and that is precisely what these new AI tools are designed to do. If you don't believe me, which is fine, by the way, what about this? I've used this example before in other videos, but I think I should probably show it again here, because the implications behind it are pretty severe. Google, which obviously has their own AI model called Gemini, somewhat recently began heavily marketing that program to a much wider audience using material like this. It's a pretty harmless video at first, but towards the end you start to see something a little bit different than generate a funny image of a cat playing guitar, because they start advertising the service for things like generating emails.
That
Cool,
part,
no big
man.
deal, you might say. Small stone in the massive archway. But then they cut to a scene where a teenage girl is asking this program, right in front of her friends, what's a good excuse to cancel dinner with my friends? You can certainly shrug it off as a goofy advertisement, but what happens when you actively market a product to teenagers, showcasing it as some sort of solution to feeling awkward, or even something that replaces basic interactions with friends? Ask the AI what to say to your friends instead of
So
actually
crazy.
talking to your friends.
Ask someone that's never had a social
aptitude
interaction with
is
what
a
my social
skill set,
interaction should be.
and using this kind of tool to replace that, which was already replaced once by texting, as opposed to actually speaking to people, is one step further removed from using the muscle itself, which leads inexorably to atrophy. We're not just hindering the act of critical thinking, we're outright replacing it, which may not be quite as comedic when compared to a movie like Idiocracy, but the end result, beyond the jokes, the humor, and the absurd over-exaggerations, the end result is a society that can't think for itself, therefore spiraling downwards. It's funny because people hand-wave all of this often as nothing. They say technology makes us smarter, but it's getting harder and harder for me to see it that way. If you want a much smaller but far more damning example of this in action, especially considering the warning that Microsoft researchers themselves gave in that document, right, regarding legal documents in particular, there was a case against Walmart initiated in 2023 and still making its way through the court system, where the legal representation for the plaintiff used 8 different case law examples that just don't exist because an AI hallucinated them. In a statement provided to the court directly, the law firm said, quote, our internal artificial intelligence platform hallucinated the cases in question while assisting our attorney in drafting the motion in the mind. This matter comes with great embarrassment and has prompted discussion and action
pathetic.
regarding the training, implementation, and future use of artificial intelligence within our firm.
Don't do
This
it.
serves as a cautionary tale for our firm and all firms as we enter this new age of
Just
artificial
read.
intelligence.
Let's go read.
End quote. Yeah,
You're a fucking
sure.
lawyer.
And people instinctively making the argument
And
that this
or
won't be a
paralegal or
problem
whatever.
once the AI
Read.
is good enough might have a point. Maybe it won't be a problem. But think of it this way. That's a lawyer, supposedly one of the smartest professions on earth if you ask
It's lazy as
everyday people. That's a,
It's lazy as fuck, man. All that school you went through for that, just to be embarrassed like that, lose your rep, lose your clientele. If I was one of your clients, bro, I'm going so fucking fast. As soon as that word gets out, you lazy son bitch. What are you doing? What are you?
It's a lawyer
So
who was
embarrassing.
having the AI do their work for them. You can pontificate all you want about how much better society will become as we perfect these types of tools and the efficiency it involves, but all I see is idiocracy being born in real time, because human beings are not thinking anymore. What do we suppose happens as automation and progressively smarter algorithms replace or eliminate more and more and more of the adverse situations that we might ever encounter, up to and including even peer-to-peer socialization? What do we think happens when the consolidation of our economy centers more and more on a few absurdly wealthy conglomerates?
And on this, to this point that he's talking about, people aren't thinking anymore. I mean, I genuinely enjoy contemplation and thinking and, analyzing things. I really do. My brain feels better. My mental feels like a better place when I'm doing that. I can't imagine not wanting to think about anything. It's like that stat. I don't know how true it is, but it seems pretty legit from what I've seen, but I don't know. I hope it's not true. But like half of humans don't have an internal monologue. How you just sitting there on mute, nothing going on? That baffles me. That seems very boring, mundane, and like a brain that's just in perpetual state of atrophy.
Whose entire business model now relies on increasingly invasive advertising. What do we think happens when we construct tools that literally tell us every minute of every day where to walk, what to order, how to dress, or how to think? And how much different does that really look when compared to a movie like Idiocracy? Sure, I could drag the video on for a lot longer with more comparisons, like how Wipeout, the game show, is effectively the same thing as Ow My Balls. How when Joe and Rita attempt to escape in a car, there's a kill switch shutting down its battery. Contained in the enormous Infrastructure and Jobs Act, which was passed during the Biden administration recently, Section 24220, there's a mandate for systems that will, quote, passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected, end quote. Which is literally a kill switch for a car, regardless of why you say.
Classic cars only for me going forward, man. I don't want no new shit.
There's no kill switch mandate, which is bullshit. But setting all of that aside,
analog,
looking
baby,
past the comedic exaggerations as
That's
well,
the side I'm trying to be
we
on.
are becoming Idiocracy. As time goes on, more and more, under the profiteering pressure of major corporations, which was the entire point of Idiocracy, more than likely resulting in its outright suppression at the box office, by the way, because it depicted certain brands in that way, which is hilarious. We are subverting our own ability to think critically, to solve problems, and to better ourselves. We rely more and more every day on simplified tools which do increasing amounts of our thinking for us. And the end result is atrophy of social and mental muscles that we used to exercise constantly every single day, which pushes us closer and closer to the drooling, incoherent morons of a decades-old movie, which was never intended to be a blueprint. It was intended to be an absurd comedy. In the end, I think we, collectively, as in society, are steadily marching down the road of becoming Idiocracy. It just won't be nearly as funny. A lot of people probably don't see it that way, which is fine, and it's obviously happening for different reasons than in the film. But I find that movie to be disconcertingly prophetic and uncomfortably accurate when you take a step back and realize it's only been 19 years since they made it. What do we really think the world is going to be like in 19 more? That's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. The video sponsored, of course, Ground News.
You either be living under King Elon or on the other side of the revolution.
Pushing these platforms more, right? And
shit's crazy. Shit's crazy. But that's how I see it. It's either gonna be someone like Elon, king of the world, or maybe him and Bezos and fucking BlackRock head dude, whoever the fuck is, they're gonna like section off the world. They're gonna have their regions, their sectors, and their subjects, which they want to be us. Or we're going to stand the fuck up to stop this shit, because these motherfuckers will not stop. They're not going to stop. I'm just going to let you know. Greed, that's not how greed and depravity works. They're never satisfied. They're going to push until they're pushed back. No way around it. It's tale as old as time. We know what we got to do. We know what's happening. And speaking of, talking about company towns, concept that goes way back, even like old coal mining companies back in the day. They'd have the mine, they'd set up a town near it. They'd have the workforce live in the town. Part of their pay would be room and board. And then everything they bought at the company store would be based off a currency that was based off of the company. So they never really got real money. They ended up in debt to the company for services and goods. And songs like 16 Tons came out. 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. It's some real shit. And they basically enslaved their workforce this way. And now it's different. It's different. It's not a service. We'll find out more about it. But Elon has a goddamn company town in Texas, Starbase, and it's right next to another town that he, what's the word? Bait and switched into allowing SpaceX to have their launch facilities out in Texas. I forget the name of the town. We'll find out here, but we're gonna hop into this little piece by More Perfect Union about, it just came out today too, so this is very, very current. And I have a feeling we're about to see a lot about our boy Elon, and I say our boy facetiously. That dude don't give a fuck about none of us, man. Everyone's gonna learn. Everyone's gonna learn. Here we go.
I think we're at the dawn of a new era. I think it's going to be very exciting.
We are at T-minus under 33 minutes and counting.
I'd love to have SpaceX be the company that brings humanity to Mars, and I hope I see it while I'm still alive.
Oh, here's Crocubot. That's what I was cracking on Zuckerberg the other day. Like he's half reptile, half android. Just Crocubot is what we're going with. Real Rick and Morty reference. Fucking Elon's another Crocubot, man. It's funny I hear this in the back. Crocubot.
I mean, are we going to Mars or not? Right now, we sure are messing a lot of stuff up in our area here.
Brownsville, Texas.
I mean, are we going to Mars or not? Come on, buddy.
The southern
I
of
love
the
that.
United States. It's a border town of 200,000 people. 10 years ago, it was upended by the arrival of a very famous new resident, the richest man in the world. Many residents are glad that this $350 billion company moved into a town that has struggled with high unemployment for decades.
Brownsville,
we need this area
that's right.
to grow. It's the poorest county in the nation.
If we don't grow, we're gonna die.
Come here, Elon. Did you see his rocket yesterday?
President Trump has promised to support...
Pause. Hold up. Pause. Yo. Trump, bro. Pause. Did you watch? Oh, blow it back up.
Elon, did you see his rocket?
Did you see his rocket? Look. Pause, bro. Pause. That's too much innuendo. Freudian slippage. Look at this motherfucker right here, acting like he just swinging his rocket. Fuck this, man. It's just crazy, dog. Pause.
Rocket yesterday.
President Trump has promised to support Musk's vision for
Put the rockets away, Elon.
We will pursue our manifest
and the ketamine
to the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
This is what victory feels like.
That's what ketamine feels like, dog. Don't get it twisted.
What's actually happening in Brownsville, where Elon Musk has already staked his company's flag?
We're a disadvantaged community that's being exploited by a billionaire for his experimental space.
Yo, what the fuck was that? Elon got his own fucking NFL Hall of Fame bus just in the middle of rural Texas.
Company's flag.
We're a disadvantaged
Yo, what the
community
shit?
that's being exploited by a...
What's this say? AKA Meme Lord by Elon WA on base. That's literally, it says Meme Lord. This guy, yo.
A billionaire for his experimental space fantasy.
We used to go a lot. I mean, before I even married, we would go, and he would go with his family also. And then once we married, we had boys. We were there probably every weekend.
It was just a very serene place. I mean, it's still beautiful when you can get there.
Renee and Ida Mandrano live just 17 miles from Boca Chica Beach, where SpaceX launches the rocket Starship. the largest and most powerful rocket ever built, and the one that Elon Musk says will take humanity to Mars. The Starship, which includes the booster Super Heavy, is a 5,000-ton rocket made of stainless steel, designed to carry up to 150 metric tons of cargo, which Musk says is necessary for his Mars colony.
The launch is here. The rocket is right here, and you can hear it, you can feel it, you can see the fire, you can see the Raptors. Can you see the smoke? And then all of a sudden you hear those booms. Our dog Miller was running around. It was loud.
Miller.
It sounded like
What up, Miller?
huge, dangerous, super explosive bomb.
What was once 1,400 acres of beach and wetlands is now home to SpaceX's building facility, launch pad, and a continuously
much
growing town where employees
space.
live, called Starbase. The rocket launches 5 times a year, but right now SpaceX is applying to launch 25 times a year.
It's a shame that it got to this point, as big as it is, and it's probably going to get bigger.
Musk came to Texas to pitch his private space launching facility in 2013,
This would be the first commercial orbital launch site in the world.
and warned that the company was also eyeing Georgia, Florida, and Puerto Rico.
We are looking at other potential launch locations.
The year before, Musk had spent $12,000 in campaign contributions and hired a lobbyist to court local politicians. SpaceX spent a total of $219,000 on gifts, trips to SpaceX headquarters in California, and even a lake.
$219,000 to the poorest, to the people who run the poorest county in the country. It's an interesting strategy.
First game. Texas is a billionaire-friendly state. They have no corporate tax or state income tax. But SpaceX wanted more, and Governor Rick Perry and the state officials were eager to win this bid. In exchange, Musk promised millions in growth.
Our competition for this in Texas is very serious.
When we first met with Elon, he explained the project to us. And then he asked us, do you know why I'm doing this? And he kind of, backs away from the table and looks at us and says, humanity can no longer sustain itself on this planet, so I'm going to help with that by colonizing Mars. So at that moment in time,
It's not going to happen.
How am I going to go back to the poorest community?
It's not
going to
happen, Elon.
My leadership, hey, let's use our hard-earned tax dollars to incentivize and recruit a company to our community. And the reason that they're doing this is because they're going to save humanity by colonizing Mars. It was just so out there.
Gilberto Salinas co-founded the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, an organization that allocates city taxes to attract businesses.
People laughed at us, but we're like, if we're able to align everything, it might be just that deal of the century.
Salinas' organization chipped in $5 million in incentives, and the state approved an additional $15 million, as well as a 10-year waiver on county taxes. 10 years later, in 2024, SpaceX released a report claiming they had invested $3.5 billion in infrastructure and created 3,400 new jobs. To Salinas, Musk had kept his promise.
I think any business person will say, you invest $5 million and 10 years down the road, those $5 million are going to turn into $3+ billion. Yeah, I would do that deal any day.
In 2014, SpaceX broke ground.
The future of South Texas takes off right behind me. This was the frontier at one time, and it's the frontier again.
The politician way of talking and trying to relate, there's like 4 or 5 different ways, but if I use my hands, it feels like I'm bringing y'all in, that Southern Texas drawl. You know how we're folksy, so you my folks now. They all, man, these people are not real.
Musk is really good at getting government subsidies. In the last few decades, he's gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from federal grants, tax incentives, and state contracts for his companies Tesla and SolarCity. SpaceX was near bankruptcy, and Musk was deep in debt when NASA gave the company a massive handout in 2008.
NASA called and told us that we'd won a $1.5 billion contract. And I couldn't even hold the phone. It's like, I just blurted out, I love you guys.
They saved you.
Yeah, they did.
Financially and maybe even emotionally.
I'll tell you what, that was definitely helpful. Yeah.
But do those
motherfucker knows without our tax money, he would be nothing. That motherfucker would be nothing without our tax dollars. And now he's going through deciding what happens with our tax dollars and funneling more to himself. no way around it. It's what the guy's doing. It's who he is, man. And he's doing the same thing in other countries. I'm telling you, he ain't had the same access and power, but he's trying to shift other countries' politics in the same way he's doing here. And he's getting money from other governments, not just ours.
Pay off for towns like Brownsville.
We are a low-income community. We're primarily brown and indigenous. We have a very unique and beautiful community.
Becca Hinosa is a local environmentalist and activist who has been fighting SpaceX for years.
Our people here, we do need jobs. Most of us are in survival mode, and we're in survival mode because we've been exploited so many times by so many different industries, and now SpaceX is part of that.
Musk has a reputation for forcing high speeds on his workers and lacks safety standards at his work sites. Reuters reported in 2023 that there had been 600 injuries at SpaceX locations since 2014. One worker has been in a coma
600?
after an on-site accident for 3 years. Another lost vision.
600 accidents and an employee in a coma for 3 years? And this is the same guy who's saying OSHA needs to go, who is the governing body for workplace safety standards and practices. And they assess and they issue violations and fines and the like to companies who are not following those codes or providing safe workplaces for their employees. Elon leads the world in OSHA violations, and now he's the one that gets to decide whether OSHA gets to keep existing. Again, do you see?
Vision in one of his eyes after being struck while moving a beam.
Ya no miré yo nada completamente, entonces yo le gritaba a mi amigo, perdí mi ojo, perdí mi ojo.
Musk's worksite in Boca Chica has an accident rate 6 times higher than anywhere in the space industry.
6 times higher. 6 times higher than anywhere else. We call him efficient. He's a genius, right? Fucker's just reckless.
Estoy yo allí en ese trabajo de SpaceX, no hay suficiente seguridad. Ahí no hay.
Besides the $5 million Brownsville gifted to SpaceX when they first arrived, the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation has since spent another $1 million to attract space-related startups. Hinosa says it reminds her of a different time in South Texas's past. About 100 years ago, when rich landowners and politicians in the lower Rio Grande Valley tried to lure white settlers to the region to farm. The lower valley was majority Tejano, Mexican Americans who had lived there before Texas was even a state, and it still is today.
They advertised our low-income people as cheap workforce and cheap land, come here and exploit.
Since Musk's arrival, the launching site and the SpaceX campus have grown much faster than Hinosa and the Medranos
as cheap
Unbelievable.
settlers to the region to farm. The lower valley was majority Tejano, Mexican Americans who had lived there before Texas was even a state, and it still is today.
They advertised our low-income people as
Disgusting.
cheap workforce and cheap land, come here and exploit.
Since Musk's arrival, the launching site and the SpaceX campus have grown much faster than Hinosa and the Medranos ever imagined.
Never did we think that they would be taking over the entire area. It was just Elon Musk is going to come in, he's going to build a little pad, he's going to have a launch, and that's it. But now it's totally different than what was explained.
The thing that bothers the Medranos the most is that
never
they
use this
rarely
quote
go to
again.
Boca Chica Beach, a beach the state of Texas and the city of Brownsville promised the public would be able to visit.
Alright, let's go back.
Totally different than what was explained. It was just Elon Musk is going to come in, he's going to build a little pad, he's going to have a launch, and that's it. But now it's totally different than what was explained.
The thing that bothers the Medranos the most is that they can rarely go to Boca Chica Beach, a beach the state of Texas and the city of Brownsville promised the public would be able to visit. The Texas state constitution guarantees access to all public beaches, but in 2013, the state amended the Texas Open Beaches Act to carve out space activity.
Wow.
Now the state is free to close the beach anytime SpaceX wants to launch a rocket, and it turns out that's a lot.
They'll send a text and they'll say Boca Chica Beach is now closed. And if we're planning to go out there, that's it. Unpack everything. And then 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'll get another text. Boca Chica Beach is now open. Well, who's going to go out there at 10 o'clock at night?
You're on their time. You know, you're on SpaceX time.
These goddamn
Local
overlords,
people
man.
call Boca Chica Beach the
Tired of
Park
these
Boys
rich
Beach
motherfuckers.
because this is where people come to fish.
Scourge.
We come to the beach with our families because it was free and open to the public. And SpaceX is changing all of that rapidly.
Boca Chica Beach is not only a popular spot for fishing and swimming, it's also a complex ecosystem, one of the most biologically diverse in North America, and home to endangered and protected species, including the ocelot, sea turtles, and the piping plover.
SpaceX
That's
is
some dope
trampling
animals.
over this
God
entire
damn,
site,
Elon.
singeing the wildlife, burning down part of the wildlife refuge. This region, most of the native habitat has been destroyed because of real estate development, industrialization, farming. We only have 3% left, and that 3% is being destroyed by SpaceX.
Hinosa co-founded the Texas Environmental Justice Center, and along with other national and local environmental organizations, is suing the FAA and SpaceX for violation of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. In order to build on the site, Musk had to do a thorough environmental impact statement, or EIS, under the National Environmental Protection Act. These reports are really comprehensive. They include impacts to air quality, carbon emissions, water usage, wildlife protection, as well as cultural and economic impacts. Initially, SpaceX got approval to launch the Falcon 9, a reliable and, after years of testing, safe rocket that takes cargo into lower orbit. But in 2018, SpaceX announced they would be launching the Starship Super Heavy, a rocket 20% larger than the Falcon 9 with 10 times the thrust. In a press conference, Musk said they would be testing their new rocket in Texas instead of the Kennedy Center in Florida because
he's got a lot of land with nobody around, so if it blows up, it's cool. If it blows up, it's cool.
A lot of land with no one
This is a
around,
perfect
huh?
example of a time the FAA should have conducted a second EIS, but instead did a simplified environmental assessment, or EA. Officials concluded that there would be no significant impact of launching this much larger rocket from Boca Chica Beach. That same year, before a single rocket took flight, SpaceX started a fire during an engine test that engulfed 68 acres of brushland in flames and burned through the night. In spite of this, the first launch of Starship was scheduled for April 20th, 2023, aka Weed Day. Here's how the launch was supposed to go. Starship was meant to orbit the Earth, with the booster landing in the Gulf of Mexico and the spaceship re-entering the atmosphere and landing in the Pacific Ocean. Instead, the launch pad exploded, sending debris across Boca Chica Beach and scorching more than 3 acres of land. A dust cloud poured over the nearby Port Isabel. Buildings shook, a window shattered.
Holy crap! Rocket is launching. See it on the ladder.
That was so loud.
It's like a soot. Big old layer cake of it. And they're trying to tell us it's sand.
SpaceX hadn't installed flame diverters, or a simple and very necessary water deluge system, sending shards of concrete and rebar all across the beach. The spaceship also failed to separate from the booster.
The entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now.
And spiraled in orbit before exploding and landing into the Gulf of Mexico. Elon looked disappointed, but SpaceX assured viewers it was a success.
You never know exactly what's going to happen, but as we promised, excitement is guaranteed.
What Elon Musk and what SpaceX tells people is that we are so efficient, we have to develop our rockets by just testing them in the real world. We're not going to use as many computer models to make sure that everything's perfect. And if it blows up, then we're going to get even more data. It's actually good if it blows up.
Eric Roche is an environment.
It sounds like the same logic of Stockton Rush from Ocean Gate. We're not going to follow the same safety practices and get certified and have the boards come put us through those protocols and the testing. We're not going to do that. We're going to cut corners. We're going to defy convention, and then we're just going to fucking fail at exponential rates higher than other people who are in the same industry as us.
Environmental engineer who writes about SpaceX at
and then people are going to die.
His blog, ESG Hound.
Those failures have externalities. Every time you launch a rocket, there's a sound wave, there's pollution, you are disrupting people's way of life.
Roche documented the damage after that first launch. Burned nests and eggs, dust and chunks of concrete, and scraps of metal on the beach.
NASA launches mostly from Kennedy Space Center, which is thousands of acres that was allocated by Congress. And so it has a buffer built in. Whereas SpaceX's launch site in Boca Chica is a tiny little spot of land, and it's surrounded by land that they don't own. It's very close to populated areas, And so those externalities are going to be magnified just by orders of magnitude.
The Kennedy Space Center was built using eminent domain, approved by Congress in 1964. But Musk hasn't gone through that same process. He's just slowly expanding the scale and scope of his operation. Roche says it's eminent domain by fiat.
I have never experienced an earthquake until SpaceX. The earthquakes that I experienced in my apartment, which is over 20 miles away, is an earthquake caused by a billionaire.
Before Musk could launch again, the FAA grounded the Starship and launched an investigation, conducted by SpaceX, but overseen by the FAA. They found 63 things that needed to be changed before the Starship could launch again. Musk and his fans goaded officials on Twitter, which Musk owns and has renamed X.com. The investigation closed in September, and the second launch was in November 2023. It was another failure.
The Super Heavy booster has just experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly.
But in 2024, during Starship's fifth flight, the reusable booster separated and returned to the launch tower, which was a major accomplishment for SpaceX. However, not a single one of the launches has successfully gotten cargo into orbit. Musk continued to publicly beef with the FAA, and in September 2024, the FAA charged SpaceX $633,000 for safety violations at Canaveral Station. Musk threatened to sue in return, but never did. As the 2024 election approached, he became increasingly vocal.
I apologize. I picked the wrong damn wire today. So any audio issues, this will not be happening going forward. This motherfucker getting tucked. I got my other cable in there. I can see it. I just grabbed the wrong one. That's my bad. I apologize for the snap, crackle, and popping. This shit's annoying to y'all, I know, because I'm experiencing it too. I promise you I ain't putting you through nothing I ain't put myself through. We ain't doing that again.
Vocal that a Trump victory would free SpaceX from unnecessary regulations.
I feel more optimistic about it with the Trump White House. The biggest impediment to progress that we're experiencing is overregulation. The bureaucracy in the U.S. has been growing every year.
And after Trump took office, the head of the FAA, Michael Whitaker, stepped down after serving only 15 months of his 5-year tenure. Musk had told him to resign on Twitter just a few months before. We went to Texas.
Sound like what's going on right now. Majorly.
Up for their 7th launch. The head of the FAA, Michael Whitaker, stepped down after serving only 15 months of his 5-year tenure. Musk had told him to resign after Trump took office.
Overregulation. The bureaucracy in the U.S. has been growing every year.
And after Trump took office.
I hate double clicks from this mouse.
The head of the FAA, Michael Whitaker, stepped down after serving only 15 months of his 5-year tenure. Musk had told him to resign on Twitter just a few months.
Proof of date. Man. I see tweets like this from him all the damn time. Telling you. That shadow president shit is an understatement.
Months before.
He's in multiple countries doing this shit. He ain't just doing it here with his meddling. He's just the most successful here. He has most access here, but he's meddling in a lot of places, getting a lot of resources. God damn it.
We went to Texas in January 2025, just as SpaceX was gearing up for their 7th launch of the Starship. Before every launch, people come from all over the country to tailgate, talk rockets, and perform light shows with their Cybertrucks.
The idea of colonizing the moon and going to Mars is also just really inspiring.
And it's
inevitable. I think the Earth is not infinite in resources.
That's so
we
fucked.
gotta start looking elsewhere.
That same week, the FAA was hosting a public forum to talk about SpaceX, increasing the number of launches a year from 5 to 25. Both Madranos and Becca Hanosa were there.
An EA is a concise document
Terrible.
used to describe the anticipated environmental impacts.
Residents were able to talk to SpaceX representatives and make comments to a court reporter. They asked about damages to their foundations and windows. They wanted to know how 25 launches a year would impact the fisheries and the wildlife.
The information that you're giving us is based on the fight.
Yeah.
Not on the
2022.
But that's also assuming that
Check.
the climate is going to stay the same.
Run that back. God damn. My mic is
foundations and
pissing me
windows.
off right
Those
now.
were there.
Ain't even my mic, it's the damn cord. I apologize again. Jesus. Tomorrow will be better.
The
But
idea of
that
going on
bullshit.
the moon and going to Mars is also just really inspiring.
And it's inevitable. I think the Earth is not infinite in its resources, so we got to start looking elsewhere.
What the
That
fuck
same week,
resources
the FAA
Mars
was
have that we
hosting
can?
a public forum to talk about SpaceX, increasing the number of launches a year from 5 to 25. Both Madranos and Becca Hanosa were there.
An EA is a concise document used to describe the anticipated environmental impacts.
Residents were able to talk to SpaceX representatives and make comments to a court reporter. They asked about damages to their foundations and windows. They wanted to know how 25 launches a year would impact the fisheries and the wildlife.
The information that you're giving us is based on the fight.
Yeah.
Not on the
2022.
But that's also assuming that the climate is going to stay the same.
It takes about 30 seconds. It can be shaky here, but it's not expected to cause any serious damage to the houses.
25 makes me laugh, you know? I mean, they had a hard time just with 5 or 6 and keeping all the debris that fall in the Gulf or fall in the Bay or fall wherever it falls.
The FAA told us there wasn't a significant impact. We know that's not true. And what it looks like is the FAA, once again, just making steps to give SpaceX whatever license they want.
The FAA still hasn't announced whether or not SpaceX will be allowed to launch 25 times a year.
They better not let them do that, man.
The 7th launch was late.
Probably will,
a
though.
week late. So the beach was closed on Friday, and then Saturday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when the rocket finally launched. It ended with an explosion over Turks and Caicos.
The vehicle just exploded. The stunning aftermath could be seen by passengers on a plane. This same flight to Miami was rerouted to avoid the debris. Other flights were also diverted.
The FAA ground SpaceX again. In December 2024, SpaceX made another surprise announcement. They would apply to incorporate the town of Starbase. For Starbase to become a town, they'll need 201 residents and a majority vote. Luckily for the future town of Starbase, the vast majority of residents in Boca Chica Village are now SpaceX employees that rent from their boss. As SpaceX was developing the Starship, they were also buying up houses in a tiny unincorporated resort town just a few miles from Boca Chica Beach. Boca Chica Village had just 38 houses, mostly occupied by part-time residents that winter in Texas. In 2019, SpaceX offered to buy out all of the residents, saying that with new FAA safety regulations, it wasn't safe for people to stay in the village.
This letter that SpaceX sent out is more of a bully attack, a hostile takeover.
But at the same time, SpaceX was moving their employees into town and expanding. Soon there were Airstream trailers lining the block, and a new name for the street that was once called Weem Street. Meme Street. If incorporated, Starbase could fund its own utilities, infrastructure.
How are you just a walking source of cringe, man? This is so bad. This is so bad. How do people trust this guy? These guys got fans just defending him left and right. This is the problem with two-party system and tribal-based politics, man. People aren't going to listen to nuance spoken by the opposition that it could be factual and beneficial. And so Elon's a part of the team. Everyone on that team's going to start backing him up no matter how damaging he is. And they know this. Hence that old propaganda stuff we were talking about earlier. They know how people are going to react in mass. There's going to be outliers, but we need the outliers to become the majority. We need critical thinking back. They know you're not going to critically think about this.
Or security forces, and it could create its own local ordinances. It would no longer be a part of Brownsville.
It's one thing to come and try to work hand in hand with the community that's here, but it's another thing to absolutely, and I see this, the actual takeover of everything.
SpaceX has already proven to be a bad neighbor, and that's why most of us don't want it anymore.
You're gonna see Elon Musk a lot in the news these days for his role in dismantling key parts of our federal government. But the real purpose of Doge isn't efficiency, it's deregulation. Musk has shown he wants no oversight for himself or other billionaires like him. The story of Boca Chica is crucial to understanding Musk's playbook for seizing public resources and justifying his campaign as part of a grand vision for humanity, whether that's landing on Mars or creating a more efficient government, a revolution for the people, as he's called it.
I wonder, like,
oh, it's going to be a revolution by the
when
people.
He's done with whatever he's going to be doing. What's going to happen to this area? Who's going to pick up all this mess? Who's going to clean it up?
Thanks for watching The Classroom for more Perfect Union. We cover the
Man, that was fascinating. That was fascinating. Again, apologies for the audio issues. Never again on that shit. I'm beyond frustrated. After this stream is cut, we handling some business. But yeah, you see the tactics these billionaires use, right? Land grab. He took over a whole little village, a vacation village for people who've probably been going there for a very long time. Said it's not safe to be there. They moved his employees there. So what is it, man? It's either safe or it's not. You either lied to people and manipulated them out of their property, or you're placing your employees in unsafe living conditions. You can't, no in between. You can't pick and choose, man. It's one or the other. So which one is it? Which one is it? You're either scandalous or you're scandalous. Either way, man, you're see-through as fuck. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of this dude get exposed as time goes. And I know there's going to be other parts of the world that join in on this effort. People are going real hard on this right now. And so I plan on having a little Elon-based stream where we're going to go through his companies, the Teslas, the SpaceXs, the PayPals, the X's, the first X.com, and then Twitter X. You know, we're going to go through all of that and paint a picture of how corrupt, scandalous, callous, sociopathic, envious of people. This dude is as bad as it gets as far as just pathetic traits paired with power. You know, it's like we got two Neros right now. We got one that has more Caesar-like traits in a way, and then we just got the fucking depraved rich, just modern analog to fucking Nero. If you don't know about Nero in Rome, look him up. Yeah, he's bread circuses, hubris, city burning. Dude went out like a coward. Look him up. Look him up. All these people that love the Roman Empire. We're the new version. We're collapsing in a tenth of the time. So there you have it. That's stream for the day. I'm getting hungry. I need something. It's getting late. You know what I mean? So I'll move on tonight. And I guess just one for the road. For the cable going out with a bang. That's never going to be using this bitch again. But, yeah, tomorrow we'll have cleaner audio. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Appreciate y'all enduring that. And hope we learn something. Hope to see a conversation get started. So, till tomorrow, everybody have a good rest of your night. Enjoy what you enjoy. Get some good sleep, good rest. Hope everyone has a good day at work tomorrow or day off, whatever you got going. Peace and love to y'all.